Hi, I am Brent Feldman, and I am back with another episode of Mix and Matchbox here. Today we are joined by the CEO of Agora Eversole Marketing Agency, Chris Bates. Hi, Chris. How are you doing?
I'm great, Brent. How are you, man? It's great to be with you today.
Definitely. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we've had a good few conversations already, and it's awesome that I get to ask you some more questions here. So.
Love it. Love it. Very much looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, this is interesting. I always go through, people's LinkedIn and I check out their background because
hmm
I usually find it fascinating how people get to where they're at. And I thought it was interesting that you have a background in psychology and then you started in counseling. I can't say you're the actual first person that's ever made a transition from that industry to something else that I've talked to. But what do you think, though, that sort of background has done for you in regards to your career path and bringing you into Agora Eversole?
Yeah. It's really cool that you found that too, because I don't get asked that question very often or enough. And I love that because there is absolutely a direct tie there. And there may not be at surface, but so, marketing, as you and I know well, being in the industry, is very much about the human mind, behaviors, responses to stimuli, to needs, to all of those types of things. And I mean that very positively. That's a lot of our charge as marketers. So I think having a background in psychology and counseling and having an understanding of the, I guess, delineation that we as humans all have these behavior trails that we tend to do. We are, my wife smiles at me when I come in the door. It makes me feel a certain way. I respond to that a certain way, and we could all give 1,000 examples of all of that. Well, that's what marketing is. So whether you're talking about the marketing funnel, or whether you're talking about designing interfaces for websites that you guys and your team do so much of, and all of those types of things, there's very much a psychology around all of that I think understanding human brain processes fits really, really well with that. And the last piece of it too is the underlying why and intention of both of those is to help people.
Yeah.
And I very much see marketing that way. And it's obvious in counseling. You're trying to help someone who's got pain points or challenges or whatever the case may be, get through, things. And marketing's the same way. And,
Absolutely.
we get to help people and, sometimes very directly, sometimes indirectly through our clients. And I just love that.
Yeah, that is very cool. And I think especially as you say, like kind of helping people, you're helping them to get to hopefully, the best information that they need to, either make a decision about something, but you're also helping those organizations that I'm sure you probably experienced this, but express themselves a little bit better in their marketing and communication and therefore create a better
Absolutely.
reflection of their organization.
Yep. Absolutely. Yep.
Cool. Well, your agency, focuses on financial institutions, and you serve quite a few banking clients. What was it about this industry that really drew you in?
You know, it's an extension of what we were just talking about, actually, Brent. We are behind the curtain. Okay. So the stories that are out there. So a community bank helps a young couple that is a first time home buyer. They get married, they buy their first home. Man, that's dreaming. That's big life stuff. Okay. They never know that Agora Eversole Marketing Agency stand behind the digital ads and the social media and all the things that engaged with them, and then they utilize that bank for a mortgage. Okay. They don't know that we exist, nor should they. But the really cool thing is we get to stand behind the curtain and be a part of those stories and helping them make them happen with that. And working with community financial institutions, we get to be part of those stories all day long, every day. Okay. And my agency, my team, and I think younger generations, Brent, are all about the why.
Yeah.
And so at very surface, you go banks, you go, ugh, dry, boring, all of that. And over the many years of us working with many dozens of banks, and now we've got clients in 17 states and all of that, it is absolutely the opposite of that.
Yeah.
Because they are funding the rehab of a small downtown area. They're doing the first time home buyers. They're helping people, build credit. They're having just the stories. So that's why the industry. And then the last piece of it, Brent, is that the people that we work with that work in this industry fit that mold as well.
Yeah.
It is. I speak at a lot of banking association conferences, as I mentioned to you, Brent. And so I spend a lot of time out and about in the industry. Okay. And whether I am in Minnesota or Mississippi or New Mexico or wherever we are involved, the people in this industry are across the board community focused, servant hearted, anyway, just really cool people.
Yeah.
In this industry, and I'm out and about enough all over the country to know that is extremely consistent.
Yeah.
So it's a lot of big reasons to be a part of this industry.
Yeah, that's wonderful. You said that. I definitely, the last one that you touched on there is like, that community focus is just really cool. Knowing how much banks have an ability to impact everybody in the community and the community at large is cool. And in a way, it's a big responsibility, but at the same time, it's one of those things that can make or break, a community, the investment in it, how it performs over a period of time. And that's definitely something that I feel like it's neat to see that. And I don't know about you if you feel the same way about this, but I feel like sometimes I've seen that banks aren't good about showing that sometimes about how much investment they are making or telling those stories,
Correct.
the conversations they're having out there. And, this isn't to chide banks. I feel like we could all do better about, not necessarily value, or virtue signaling, but, just being, having the community awareness about sometimes the things that you're doing for the community.
Yeah. And those stories.
Yes.
That's right. That's right. Right. Yeah. Because Brent, it's guess what? Every one of them does checking accounts, loan, does deposit accounts and loan side and all that. So don't sell that.
Mm-hmm.
That's not who you are. The who you are is you're a commercial bank and you're helping small businesses and get up and running and all those kind of things. And that's an amazing set of stories. Or you're an ag bank,
mm-hmm.
And you're supporting the farming industry there and literally putting food on the table for all of us. And those anyway. So yeah, I could go on and on about that one because that's such a cool part of exactly what you just said.
Yeah.
That community mindedness, presence, and the stories of how they're making all of that happen is really something. It's cool to be a part of.
That's awesome. That's cool. Well, you and I both share the belief that WordPress is an incredible CMS. We've been working on the platform since 2011, and I still hear the same questions that I heard back in 2011 about, is it safe? Is it secure? Is it big enough? Is it, built to do some of these things? And I don't know what'll ever change perceptions about it. It's running, 45+% of the web. But, it still seems to have the same stigma. Why do you feel like it's the best platform for the job?
Well, no doubt. I think it's several key things. I think the flexibility and the growth potential, of a WordPress site is almost infinite. It can go as far. We can build that house as big and expansive as we need to build it. So that's one thing. And whereas a lot of other CMS really are kind of at their core not as scalable. SEO benefits. Because you just mentioned it. I mean, I heard a figure, and I think this was 2 years ago, that it was like 73 million websites worldwide are on WordPress. Well, that's a couple of years ago. So I'm sure that number's whatever it is now. It's far larger. But Google and now the AIs and all of those things, they recognize that. just as with WordPress as a platform. Some of our clients want and or need to do self-content editing. Example, changing rates. Okay. So we manage websites for a lot of our bank clients, host them, manage them, do content updating, build new, content stuff out and all of that kind of stuff. But their marketing director needs to be able to jump on and change the rate like right now. So WordPress is a good platform, teachable. And again, depending on whether you're in a theme or a custom or whatever it is, but it's still a fairly easy system to train someone who has no business being a web person or a developer, to go in and do some of that and leave all the other things to us. And really the design benefits are tremendous. And Brent, I'll share a quick story with you. And I need to fact check myself on this, but I'm almost positive that up until just a few years ago, Bank of America's website was on WordPress.
Oh, wow.
So I tell that to community banks and they're like, oh, I'm like, yeah, I don't think it is anymore. But I mean, the point is that we can go as far as you want to go. And these, I don't want to call them rumors, but this reputation and security concerns and stuff that you mentioned, I just don't know that that's true, because there's so much that we can do from a security standpoint. So
yeah,
anyway,
I agree. Yeah.
yeah.
And I think maybe that stuff just isn't as widely known, that it's one of those things that people in the marketplace hear the name WordPress and they associate it with, a CMS that maybe, their brother-in-law uses or something, and they're like, oh, well, that's just what it's cut out for. And I think the fact that as you dig into the platform and you realize how extensible it is, and it's just in the way it's leveraged, is the biggest thing. You mentioned security, whether it's like, through plugins or actually just building on the platform itself. And then also the fact that it's got a community of that many websites that are on the platform. They are detecting bugs and issues before anybody else is, because everybody is, hammering on it every day. So if that is the case, I feel like there's some argument to be made that it can be more secure than other platforms, because the rigor it goes through theoretically in being that big of a part of the web. So I definitely, I feel
great points.
Yeah. But it's one of those challenges. I'm glad that it's not just me who hears those. This is also, I think, in terms of, quote unquote, battling, but, as you work with other banks and credit unions on marketing services, are there any other myths that you balance, or battle while, kind of achieving that need for compliance? Because that is definitively part of, the industry. What I know you as an agency, focus on being, a partner in that. But are there any other sort of myths surrounding compliance that you sort of like, still come up against?
Yeah, I think in the industry in general, even I'm talking about people that are in the industry, even C-suite level folks. Okay. I think they're just kind of a multitude of myths, or more like misunderstandings, of compliance. And the biggest one that I see and hear, Brent, are banks' reluctance to try certain platforms, methodologies, things. Social media comes to mind, some of the digital advertising strategies that we utilize, those types of things, that there's a fear factor around it because there's going to be a compliance set of issues. Or when we have compliance audits, they're going to ping us for this and that. And the truth is, you just need to know what you're doing, or we as an agency need to know what we're doing. I mentioned to you, my entire team of 15, we go through stringent compliance training twice a year. And that's extremely important. So I think the myth there is, oh, we can't really be out there on social media the way that we want to, or we can't, again, I'm just using digital advertising and social as a couple that are at the top of the basket there to grab. And those things are so not true. So very not true. You just need to know how to do it and do it well, because those are the ideal opportunities for community engagement and having your brand out there and growing following, but also having the personality and specializations and differentiations of your bank out there are through those platforms, and they can absolutely be done compliantly. I just think that fear factor, again, even at the C-suite and the board level for some of these banks is, oh, we just don't need to do that, or we need to do it only in a very limited way. And that's so not true.
Yeah.
It's just knowing how to do it compliantly and do it well. So
yeah. That's cool. I feel like that is, super important. And, kind of the response to, like, how you got into it. It was, the fact that, a couple purchasing their first home may get exposed to multiple different, touch points before they ever become a customer of the bank. And if those things are absent, would they have gotten in touch with your bank? And it sounds like, from your standpoint, which I completely agree with, that it's a knowledge gap thing. It's like, it's we don't know that we can do that because, we're unsure of the compliance or regulation around it. And as long as they have a partner who's able to steward that, sort of like that journey, then hopefully they'll get to the right place. But that's great that you're able to have that experience and contribute it to what they're doing online. As far as gaps in marketing strategy when it comes to websites, where do you think that banks and credit unions on their website need the most assistance?
Oh, that's a great question. I do think that it kind of falls under what we were just talking about. Is I'm not sure that banks fully understand everything that is out there and can be done with and through their website from a UI, a UX perspective, for one, but even from a brand perspective. I don't want to put down any other methodologies, but I know that, for example, some of the core platforms offer websites. Okay. And they're templatized. They're this and that. And maybe that feels safe. But to answer your specific question about that, that is a great example of if a bank decides to go that route, they are so limiting the capabilities of their brand. And some of the other, before we got on the recording today, Brent, you and I were talking about on some of the web projects for banks that you guys have done, the extent of resource capabilities and those types of things. And I think banks sometimes might want to stay safe, and they're missing out on so much that can, again, differentiate them. We do a lot of branding work too. So that getting that brand messaging out there about who you really are, which dials you into key audiences. And again, that's marketing, crucial backbone kind of stuff there. So I think that's some of those gaps, Brent, that are just not out there. They don't realize how far they can really stretch their legs and expand their brand and expand UI and UX stuff into resource things. And again, I'm just using that as an example because you had brought it up earlier, and to not do that, they're really limiting themselves. And at the end of the day, with a website and with what they're trying to do to grow business, they're limiting their ROI.
Yeah.
And don't even realize it by quote unquote staying safe. And, again, there's so much room to run there. So I think that's where a lot of those big gaps are, Brent.
Yeah. I was gonna say I have nothing to add, but then it was that last point that you had made that that really resonated with me about, like the staying safe part. And I don't know what you feel about maybe me kind of phrasing it like this, but staying traditional too.
Yes.
Being like, hey, we've got our website and it's up there and it does the thing, but and you gave all the points behind it, of kind of like, what your website could do in terms of outreach, expression, your brand, and all that sort of stuff. But I do feel like it can get the, hey, let's just, let's keep it kind of what we did before. Our website's up there as a brochure. It has the necessary information, the people at the bank, who to contact. Boom, we're done.
And it's just very self-limiting. You're absolutely right, Brent.
Yeah, cool. Well, dealing with banks and credit unions of varying sizes, you don't always get, maybe the CMO role of a bank in even maybe a marketing department at all. And that can definitely just depend on, challenge, necessity, people's belief in it. Don't want to, always conject as to why, that may happen. But how does this affect, the way that you're able to communicate the value of your services when you're not always talking to someone who understands the value of marketing?
Yeah, that's a challenge. What I talk about a lot, Brent, and especially when I'm out and about and giving marketing talks and that type of thing, is the differentiation between marketing as an investment versus an expense. And the point that you're making is sometimes if we're having conversations with maybe a CFO,
Mm-hmm.
or others that don't live and breathe in marketing, that really view that as an expense, and they view that, yeah, the website, what we need to invest in, kind of like you said a minute ago, is just something it's a brochure site and it's got links to our online banking, and that's really the purpose of it. And that's not even, that's, as you and I know well, that is not even close. That's not even scratching the surface of it. So that, again, using the building a house analogy, that's kind of like, okay, well, tell you what, let's do. Let's put up the front wall and the front door and the porch and just not put anything behind it, because that's what we need to show the public.
Yeah.
So it's almost that short-sighted. So it's conversations around that, Brent, of helping, again, a CEO, a CFO, a compliance officer, those types of things, really understand the value of marketing as an investment, and discussions around brand.
Yeah.
And, that's how you catapult yourself forward, and being more. And so here's the last part of the answer to you. Often I will ask bank leadership this question: are you stagnant or are you growth mindset?
Mm-hmm.
And if you're a growth mindset, to what degree? Answer that for me, and then we'll have marketing discussions.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, we're a growth mindset. We want to, whatever, grow 1/4% or something like that. It's like, well, okay, you might just need a plug and play website,
Yeah.
and go with that. But if they're like, no, we're a 700 million asset bank, and in 5 years we're going to be a $2 billion one, and we're going to grow, and here's what we're willing to do and invest in that, and all. Okay, all right, now we can have some marketing conversations.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, if you're supporting these organizations, I'm sure that, absent of that marketing department, you're probably having to give not just high level strategy, but also the sort of like daily, things that they need, whether that be actually, helping out with like the functions of a marketing department. How are you serving both of those needs as you approach, organizations, both from like, top level strategy to get to that end goal that they're looking for, but also just serve on the brass tack stuff too?
Yeah. Well, the majority of our services that we do as an agency, Brent, are kind of that done for you set of services, and we really customize that, to whatever it is that they need. And to your question, maybe a marketing director or a 2, 3, 4 person marketing department, maybe they've really got their bases covered in, maybe they've got an ad designer and someone that can, has some level of expertise in running digital ad campaigns, for example, or something like that. But they're not good at doing social media the way that it potentially can be done to grow a brand and highly engaging with their communities, those types of things. So they need us to do that thing. And I just use those as examples. But to further answer your question, a lot of it is educating them on all of those different marketing channels, marketing opportunities, those types of things. On a lot of what we spend time in is, and don't quote me on these stats, but I know it's approximate nationally that year over year in the banking industry for the last 3 years, traditional marketing is on a 12% decline, and digital marketing is on a 17% annual increase.
Wow.
Okay, and those make sense. We all know that, that's where they're moving. So again, to your question, Brent, it's helping our clients move that direction successfully and impactfully with ROI, And sometimes they really need us instead of hiring one or two or three or four new people internally. They
Mhm.
can have our team do that because it's what we do all day, every day for banks, and we're really good at it. No offense to them, but two or three folks on my team can significantly outrun theirs anyway. In like example, growing their social media presence,
Yeah.
because it's what we do and do well and know how to do it compliantly, or whatever that platform or category is, Brent. So it's educating our clients, and hey, if you guys got these bases covered internally, rock on. And we're here to support and work alongside that. But these things you really need to outsource in order to help grow the bank.
That's great. I love the emphasis on the education part, because
Hmm.
bringing people into the fold, letting them know why you're doing stuff is just as important as doing it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's great. Well, this is on me, but I've talked a lot about banks and credit unions together as if they're the same thing,
Mm.
and they're definitely not, or lumped them into a category. But yes, they'll provide the same services, but they operate, definitely completely differently. Whether that be in how they're impacting the community, whether that be in, general structure, obviously,
Hmm.
lack of profit, kind of
Hmm.
calculations, but they are different entities. But how do you go about shaping, and especially as, like, I know that you're approaching a lot of these organizations with a branding first approach. How
Hmm.
do you help shape marketing that feels very genuine and authentic to an organization, regardless of whether they are a bank or credit union?
Yeah. Great question. And you actually just touched on it. It's around brand. So we do a lot of, brand messaging work with clients frequently. And a lot of those for brands, maybe they were established in 1873 or whatever, and that's their tagline, since 1873. And I'm like, okay, guys, that's not a call to action. That's not, I'm not switching to your bank because of that. Now, it's an authority statement. It needs to
Mhm.
be on the about page. I hear you. That's great. You're not a newbie on the block, and I understand that. But that's not that's not an emotional grab brand statement that becomes relatable and attractive.
Mhm.
So in that differentiation individually, Brent, whether it's community bank or a credit union or whatever the case may be, whoever it is, it's pulling out what is so unique about your brand and how do we carry that message out there. And again, a very simple example, of ours is if you're an ag bank and that's what you do. And yes, you do lots of other things and other offerings, and you've got credit cards and all these other kind of things, but your real core is what you do is you work with farmers.
Yeah.
Okay. And you know very well how to finance that, what their pain points are, how to resolve, and you invite their problems in so that you can help resolve those for your ag customers. And if that's what you do, we need to redo your brand or at least your brand marketing around that and learn how to convey that into those target audiences. So Brent, answering your question, we need to do that for every single bank or credit union, and think about what differentiates you. Because guess what? We all sell money. We all have checking accounts. We all have loans. We all have all these things, but let's pull that way apart and kind of ask why about 4, 5, 6 levels underneath your mission statement. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And figure out what is it that you're really, because every one of them have it. And what's
Yeah.
really fun for us, Brent, sometimes is they don't even know they have it,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
you know? And they're like, oh, wow, that's really who we are. That's really who our ideal, and the last part of the answer to the question is, at surface, so many of our banks, and we say, who's your target market? You know what the answer is?
Mm.
Our communities.
Yeah.
And we're like, no, 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 no.
Oh no.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, it is. I get that. And I understand. But, we want to dive into who is that. And the answer is because there is a segment of that community audience that you are really, really good at solving their pain points. or helping them move life forward, helping their businesses move forward, whatever your specific really, really good at is as unique as all of us as humans, Brent.
Yeah.
So back to your first question about psychology. Well,
Uh-huh.
there's even the psychology of a bank's personality. You know what I mean? And it's so important to pull that out and then market that.
Absolutely. Yeah. From a branding perspective, it is. It's so important. And this is kind of like a tack on, or maybe even like, weaving back into it, but it's kind of like, why do you think banks and credit unions try to be everything to everybody?
Mhm.
Why do you think there's a reluctance to maybe vertically focus, or like, say, hey, we're really good with this group of people, we should try to get more of those? Do you have a feeling that you've seen throughout a slew of branding projects, or conversations with bankers of why they feel that may be the best approach? Or is that just that they haven't been led to the right place? What's your feeling on how they get to this? That I feel like, yeah, they're like, oh, well, it's about the people. You're like, all right, great, okay. I've heard that a billion times before, but yeah, I'm curious why.
Yeah. I think that's fear. I think that's reluctance. I'll tell you the best way for me to answer that question. I started Agora in 2009, okay, as a marketing agency. And transparently, those first few years, you know who my clients were? Anybody with a checkbook needed marketing help, right? And we kind of all start our businesses that way,
Yeah.
and so we were doing the things, and we kind of grew more into digital and all those kind of things. But I mean, man, we were working with construction and education and finance and healthcare. And, we were working, I mean, it was kind of doing all those things. And at some point I came to a crossroads and said, we're either going to kind of continue to do that, or we're going to get really, really good in an industry sector and become professionals in that. And I'll give you a visual of this, and it's not to put either one down. They're both great and highly necessary. But it's, do you want to kind of be the general practitioner doc, and kind of, you can fix cuts and bleeds and colds and flus and all that kind of stuff. And again, I'm not putting that down. That's highly necessary. Or do you want to be a renowned neurosurgeon
Mm-hmm.
that does a specific thing that people are coming from all over the country being referred to you because you are the absolute best at this thing? And by the way, those are two very, very different earning categories.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So that's the answer to your question to me, is these banks is get really good at, we have one of our bank clients that is a $4 billion bank, multi-state, all of that kind of stuff. And they've got a certain set of categories that they are really specifically good at. And Brent, they are probably the best in the country at it.
Mm-hmm.
Veterinarians is one of their niches. And I mean, they are really, really good at it. So, man, their market capture for veterinarians all over the country is like scaling exponentially. So, and that's just an example.
Yeah.
Okay. So
Yeah.
that's what we're talking about. Not we serve the community, so it's either a horizontal or a vertical, and that specialization, I think, for banks is a lot of what their future is. And by the way, last comment on it here, that is their best way to compete with the fintechs and the nationals.
Absolutely.
How does a community bank, compete with a Bank of America or a Chase? Well, I can tell you exactly how. It's everything that we just described.
Yep.
Just find out what you're best at, and let's go do it really, really well.
That's great. It's a good.
Sorry, I get on a soapbox about that one.
No,
Man.
it's good.
I'm passionate about helping our clients do that.
I mean, the reality is that the big banks and fintechs are opening accounts at astounding rates. They're capturing a large part of the market, and community banks need strategy in order to differentiate, in order to make a mark about who they are. And it's not just, open an account for an X dollar amount offer. It's about, actually holding a position of why they are important in their community. And and making sure that other people around them understand that and what they do. So I couldn't agree with you more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, if you were able to change one thing about the financial services industry to either make your job easier or help more clients, or relieve a burden on your clients, what would that be? What one thing? And you can't say take out compliance. I don't think
Right.
you would.
You want an answer based in reality here, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I'll go back to the growth mindset piece. Okay. And if as a company leader of any business or company, I mean, I hate to say it this way, but you're satisfied with stagnant and kind of riding it out where you are, then that's one thing. But I think changing that perspective into growth mindset, and that what we were just talking about, you really can compete with the fintechs and the nationals. You really can be, as a financial service company, extremely impactful in people's lives, in changing towns and cities and those types of things. And, really digging into that and how to do that well. But I think it's got to lead with that agreement from board level, C-suite level, that we are growth mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We would, and we're willing to partner with people, agencies, whoever it may be, that can help us with the implementation of that growth mindset. And so that's the big thing that I would change, because rather than being, kind of doing things the way that we've always done them, I think is really, really not good long-term for this industry. It's just not.
Yeah.
So that growth mindset is willingness to evolve, change, see marketing in particular as a true investment rather than an expense.
Mm-hmm.
And all of that around brand.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And here's what I really like about that. I actually, that strikes me because, like, if you have a bank or a credit union in a community that has a growth mindset, theoretically, that growth mindset can't just obviously be centered around what they do. It's like growing for the sake of growing is whatever. If banks and community banks, credit unions, anybody that has an impact on a community, an investment in the community helps communities grow. It helps people prosper. And it's kind of like having that mindset that you're not only doing this for whatever the bottom line is, you're doing it because you care about the place that you exist within, and that hopefully that has bigger, broader, mission oriented things. As you grow as an organization, an institution, you can have bigger impacts in social projects and things that you can do, charity work for the community. I mean, like, I see so many banks and credit unions involved in those kind of things, but their ability to do that is only underpinned by them doing better within a community, and more community belief in them. So it's a big cycle. So I really appreciate that. Yeah, I love that you said that. That's cool. That's very cool.
Yeah, and that, even, by the way, on that list, needs to include their team.
Mm-hmm.
You're impacting lives and families, with your team as well. If they're growing their careers, if they're part of that, having that impact, man, that's significant.
Absolutely. I just talked to somebody the other day who was within the industry, and he had been at a certain bank before that for 7 years. That bank got purchased by this other larger bank, and he's been there for another 3 to 4. And he's there's no mindset that he's moving or getting away from that bank. He's like, I love it here, and I really appreciate that, because, like, you can see that the people within inside that organization that do have that growth mindset really have the mission of, like, hey, we're doing it not only for ourselves but for the people around us, and that's just so cool.
Good stuff, man.
Yeah, well, this is awesome. Chris, thank you so much. You had some truly really good answers and stuff that were good thinkers and stuff for me too. I appreciate that. But thanks so much for being on the podcast. Is there anything that you want to plug?
I love having these conversations with people in the industry. Brent, and that's no obligation conversations. And again, because we're working with, almost 70 banks in 17 states and all that kind of stuff. So a lot of what I love sharing is best practices, and people that are in the industry are trying to figure out the kind of things that we've had and talked about in this conversation today. So whether it's specific around a service or a strategy or a brand thing, or just even about this growth mindset. So sure, would love for people to reach out through our website, agoraeversole.com. Check us out, and reach out to us to have these conversations. And help us elevate you and your brand, because at the end of the day, that's what my team, which is such an unbelievable, servant-hearted, mixed with highly professional and impactful team. I couldn't ask for more. And so my team and I love having those conversations. So whether we ever work with you or not is really kind of beside the point. So yeah, man, I want to encourage people to reach out through our website, connect with me individually, find me on LinkedIn if you want, those types of things, and let's have some conversations.
Well, that sounds great. Well, Chris, I just, again, thank you so much for being on the podcast, and I'm sure we'll be talking again here soon.
Enjoyed it very much, Brent. Thanks a lot.
Thanks. Well, this has been another episode of Mix and Matchbox. I'm your host, Brent Feldman. We will be back soon with more content. Please like and subscribe. Thanks.